Hello chummies, thank you for joining me at Bert's Books. This is going to be a quick just catch up on stuff I've accumulated recently, unscripted and in no particular order. 1. Michael Howell and Peter Ford's The True History of the Elephant Man. Well, that's going to be a bit serious, isn't it? Joseph Merrick. I always thought his name was John. Do they call him John in the film? Anyway, it's Joseph. I think I read this in the 90s, or part read it. If you're feeling in any way fragile, this might not be the choice of reading. Yes, I might have to work up to this one. So, by contrast, on a altogether more frivolous note, Troy Conways' Cocksman. I'm sorry, I'll try that again. I'm sorry, I'll try that again. Troy Conway's Cocksman 17. This was a series that got at least as far as 17. The $1 Billion Snatch. You can probably guess the kind of thing this is. James Bonkon. It's secret agent, counter spy Rod Damon. Counter spy Rod Damon, the Cocksman, gets into his hottest adventure in the $1 Billion Snatch. It was really tempting actually to try and read that in a Matt Berry sort of voice. Actually, this is it seems to be an American thing. Anyway, I've only got a couple of chapters in. He goes to Rome. He's like, well, I don't need to explain this. He just bangs everything that fucking breathes. It's if you remember those Austin Powers films, they kind of weren't that much of an exaggeration, other than, I suppose the campness of Austin Powers isn't really reflected in this, but, the kind of shag-happy secret agent premise. I can't believe this is edition 17 in a series. I can't imagine there's that much variety within them. Anyway, like a lot of these things, it's not. When you pick it up and read it, it's that kind of halfway house between. You can't really say it's if you'll pardon the expression, tug-worthy. It's not tug-worthy. It's this kind of pissy titillation. Anyway, sort of engaging enough as a novelty, I suppose. Right, next we got to do better than that, right? Well, look what else I came up with. A novelization of a Chuck Norris film. I have barely ever watched a Chuck Norris film. I know I won a DVD of one of them at some do back in about February, and I've still not watched it. What am I doing with this? I think I was just curious to see how a novelist would handle a kind of Chuck Norris thing, and I don't know yet. I've only kind of done the first chapter of this. It's going to be sort of tough guy stuff, I suppose. Anyway, the author also seems to have specialised in serial killer books, which might bear further investigation. But I don't know. I'll have to come back to this one, I suppose, or maybe even watch the film. I don't know. Chuck Norris is, I'm more aware of him as a sort of cultural. You've got this kind of postmodern ironic conception now of Chuck Norris due to all these. There's been many years of these endless jokes about Chuck Norris punched a bear and shat in a volcano or whatever it is, which is reflected in another book I have a copy of kicking around somewhere. I think it's called The A to Z of Manliness, or The Alphabet of Manliness, and there's a whole lot about Chuck Norris written in this kind of slightly ironic way. His career seems to have had this second wind through people who remember his work from the 80s and have kind of churned out this stylised conception of Chuck Norris as a man who shits iron bars or whatever. So anyway, next, now there was a time when I was, I don't know, maybe sort of 8 or 9, maybe 10 years old, that every school library and every children's library in the land seemed to have a copy of this. Now I don't want to dwell too long on this because I'm intending to do something else by another of this author's works, Robert Westall. So we're going to look at him hopefully in a bit more detail very soon. This book I think is probably the best known of his works, the first of his books to win a Carnegie Medal, and I think I read it, or I read part of it when I was a kid. I think my sister got it out of the library and I read a part of it. It does stand up, as a reading from an adult perspective. Westall, he has a way of exploring the very difficult territory of early adolescence, and he doesn't shy away from the kind of more I suppose brutal aspects of this, and also he doesn't indulge in this in the kind of rather fallacious nostalgia that as a nation we tend to indulge in about the Second World War. This isn't a sort of we're all in it together sort of book. It kind of describes some very subdivided loyalties, I suppose you could say. It's very far, the right and wrong of this in this story is very far from clear cut. So yeah, if kids' books you can read in adulthood is a category, Westall's work definitely merits investigation. But like I say, I intend to do more on Robert Westall, so I'm not going to dwell too long. Right, next. Not a work of fiction, this is a reference work. Iron Dinosaurs, for any train spotters out there. This is a Blandford publication, and I kind of had it in the back of my mind. I've accumulated quite a few old Blandfords over the years, and they're a great imprint. This one's slightly unusual in that it's photographic rather than the kind of illustrated colour plates that you get in most of them. So it's a bit of an unusual one, but beautifully produced. So this one is, I think it was published in the late 70s, and it's to do with, it's a twilight of steam kind of thing. At the time there were certain countries, maybe there still are, I'm not sure, but certain countries that were still operating steam railways, just very kind of superannuated. The state of these mechanisms just really dirty, sort of held together with God knows what, held together with bits of wire and duct tape or whatever. Glorious. So, but Blandford, yeah, like I say, probably deserves a bit more time than I can give it now. But incidentally, a great source of out-of-print books, affordable out-of-print books, more in the reference line than fiction, I suppose, but a really good source for these things are operating heritage railways or preserved railway lines. A lot of them have these little shops that just for next to nothing you pick these things up, long out of print. I guess they'll have an official shop at the main terminus, but a lot of them will have this kind of more informal kind of second-handy shop, I guess aimed at just I think these things probably come in as donations from people and are sold to raise funds for the particular line. This one came from the Welsh Highland Heritage Railway in Porthmadog out in North Wales, but also like the Severn Valley Railway. Last time I visited had this little, on one of the stops along the line, there's this little informal kind of second-hand shop full of stuff like this. Right, last of all, this came from a haul of free stuff that, the way stations or tube stations will have. This kind of little thing of free, people just donate free books and people pick them up or leave their own. Brack the Barbarian. Now I know I read I think the original Brack the Barbarian, the Sorceress. I think I read the original in the 80s, just that it was lying around someone's house where I was staying and I was bored and I picked it up and I wasn't that into it. I mean, it was kind of a bit, obviously Conan-esque. And this genre, I can't say I'm that well qualified to comment on the sword and sorcery genre. I like Conan the film, or at least the first one, but I've kind of never really gone deeper than that, so I'm probably not best placed to comment on it, really. But anyway, I've not even sort of got into this, but it was kind of one of those rather random finds that these book donation points will occasionally turn up. I don't know what that is on the cover. It looks like I don't know what that looks like. Big bloody dragon. So there's going to be a dragon, isn't there? Anyway, but anyway, that's it for now. Thank you again. Thank you again for joining me. Incidentally, as a stark warning against the perils of drunk internet shopping, I've ended up with this, and I've got to live with the consequences. Anyway, thank you again. See you next time.